It was a cold night in Abilene, Texas, in January 1996. Around 9:30 p.m., I was sitting in my car, parked in a near-empty lot outside the Cinemark Theater, just finishing up some notes for a column that I was writing. I wasn't there to watch a movie. I just swung by the late drop box to pay a cable bill and then pulled over into a nearby lot just to jot a few things down while they were on my mind. Now, let me start by saying I don't really expect anyone to believe what I'm about to tell you. As a veteran journalist, I'm well aware that verifiable sources and documentation tell stories as much as the words used to write them, and that's fine. Hell, I wouldn't believe me either if I hadn't been there, but I was, and here's what happened. There was a late feature set to play after 10 that night, but at this point, the movie crowd hadn't showed up yet. Just me, really, scribbling under the dim glow of my dome light. Something caught my attention from out of the corner of my eye. Two figures were walking across the lot, making their way directly towards my car. At first glance, I thought they were just a couple of kids, maybe 12 or 13 years old, bundled up against the chill in heavy coats, hoods up, pants that seemed a little too big for their frames, and as they got a little closer, I noticed that their clothing seemed old-fashioned, like something out of the 50s, like they just walked out of another era altogether. The closer they got, the more certain I became that they were headed straight towards me, and the more I could see of them, the more off it all felt. When they stepped under the glow of the nearest light pole, I caught a glimpse of their skin and noticed it was unnaturally pale, almost translucent in the sodium vapor lights. They stopped right by my driver's side window, just staring. One was a bit taller, looked maybe 14, the other shorter, around 10 or 11 maybe. They just stood there, staring at me through the window. I rolled it down a crack, stupid I know, and asked them what they wanted. The shorter one spoke first. His voice was flat though, emotionless, like he was reading words off a script.
Can we have a ride? We need to get home.
Where do you live? I asked. The taller one leaned in a little, his hood shadowing his face. It's just down the street. We won't take long. That's when I look up. I mean, really look, as he stands up just enough for the lights to pass over his face. Their eyes, Jesus Christ. They weren't normal eyes. They were solid black, like twin pits of ink. No whites, no irises, nothing. Just black. At that moment, a wave of strong dread hit me, like ice water in my veins. It wasn't the fear like you'd feel from a mugger or a dog. It was deeper, primal, like every instinct screaming, run. My heart started pounding, and I could feel as the hairs on the back of my neck all stood at attention. I tried my best to play it cool. Sorry guys, not going that way. Why don't you wait for your parents inside the theater? It's warm. The shorter one moved closer, his face nearly pressing against the window, and spoke.
We can't go in there. We have to get in your car.
His voice gained a weird urgency, still monotone, but now more insistent.
You have to let us in.
The taller one nodded before adding,
We're just kids. It's cold out here.
I risked a quick glance away towards the theater lights and then back, and that's when it fully registered. Their eyes, they were really black. Completely, impossibly black, like voids that no light could escape from. And in that moment, the dread turned to panic. I fumbled for my keys, stammering out, Look, I can't help you, call your folks or something. Then bang. The shorter one banged on the window lightly, not too hard, but enough to make me jump.
Let us in, now.
That was enough for me. I threw the car into reverse and peeled out of the lot, tires squealing the whole way. In the rearview mirror, I saw them, just standing there, watching me go. No running, no yelling, just staring. And then, in a blink, they were gone, like they'd never been there at all. I just floored it home and got out of the car and couldn't get my key into the lock quickly enough, but once I did, I raced around my house, locking every door, checking every window, and then I still couldn't sleep for hours. Every time I closed my eyes, I would see theirs staring back at me. Those eyes. I'll never forget them. Welcome to our final episode of Spooky Season, where tonight we meet the entities known only as the Black-Eyed Kids. While this was their first known entry into the modern zeitgeist, it certainly wouldn't be their last, and there's a chance that it wasn't their first time they've appeared throughout history either. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 11, our Halloween special, Black-Eyed Kids, The Final Knock.
Welcome to the Clandestine Radio Podcast, Season 3.
Chapter 1. A pattern emerges. The story I just told you is true and accurate so far as I know it to be. And it comes from a journalist in Texas named Brian Bethel, and he first published it in his newsletter. Bethel would post a follow-up in November of 1998 with a story from a trusted friend that has some eerily similar details. What began as a personal nightmare in '96 quickly echoed elsewhere, hinting that his experience wasn't isolated, but seemed more widespread. The story was pulled from old IRC chat logs that he posted online. It was raw, unpolished, and came from someone that Bethel trusted, someone who, in his words, is a, quote, gentleman of high intelligence and candor, and doesn't joke around about the paranormal. John Northwood was that gentleman's name, and according to Bethel, they had never discussed the Black-Eyed Kids before this, and he was unaware of Bethel's encounter when this exchange took place. Rather than read you the chat exchange, though the full text with the links to everything will be in the Discord chat as always, I'm going to just extract that info and lay the story out for you in the same manner as the last one, so you can hear this account how it took place originally. Now, if you're ready, let's go ahead and dive in. I don't know if I believe in ghosts, demons, or the like, but after what happened to me in downtown Portland, Oregon, I'm not so sure anymore. It was about a week ago, late evening around 11:30 p.m. I just finished a seminar series on software development and grabbed a quick dinner around 10. The city was quieting down, but not empty. I headed to my car in an above-ground garage on the 3rd floor. Good lighting, all considered, and a few people were still milling about, so felt safe enough. I just got into my car and buckled the seatbelt, locked the doors, and started the engine when someone tapped on my driver's side window. It was Doug, a guy from the conference. He looked rattled and asked for a ride around the block a few times. Said that he was freaked out by who was standing by his car when he came out. Given our location, I figured it was probably just some of Portland's mini homeless or maybe some punker kids. No shortage of those either. So, like a good Samaritan, I let him in and we drove off. As we circled around by his car, there they were. 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. The girl was maybe 14 or 15, all gothed out, clothes, hair, makeup, smoking a cigarette like she was bored out of her mind. The others were intense, way too intense for kids. The older looking boy appeared to be around 14 as well. The younger was probably closer to 10 or 12. They leaned against Doug's car, just staring. Something about them made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I started getting this itch behind my eyes like I just needed to get a closer look at them. Stupid move. I slowed down, big mistake. The 2 boys sauntered over with no hesitation. The girl, she stayed put. The older boy headed towards Doug's side, and the younger one approached my side of the car. I double-checked the electric locks and then asked through a small crack in my window why they were hanging around Doug's car. The young one spoke first, his voice flat, no kid-like stutter or shyness.
It's scary out there all alone, and we just wanted a ride home.
The older one chimed in as he finished.
You promised you'd help us out.
Doug shot me a confused glance before responding to them saying, I don't even know you. By this time, I was really on edge for some reason, caught between feeling like I might either throw up or take off. That fight or flight edge. Adrenaline always triggers that for me, and to say it was really pumping at that moment would be a major understatement. All of a sudden, Doug said that he was getting out and reached for the door handle. I told him not to do it. As he grabbed the handle, the boys, I'm not really sure how to put this, but they changed. Their faces looked drawn, older somehow. It was in their eyes that hit the hardest though. They were solid black, edge to edge, no pupils, no iris, just liquid black pools staring back at me. I nearly pissed myself if I'm being honest. I slammed the car into reverse and peeled out, leaving a burnout for about 60 feet before stopping and looking to see their response. To my horror, they just lowered their heads and began sprinting after us. I spun around one of the support struts at the parking garage where Doug had parked, and I floored it as much as possible down the ramp and away from the 2. I was, for whatever reason, full convinced that if they got a hold of the car, I was going to die, and not in anything approaching a pleasant fashion. So you can imagine my shock and horror when the oldest one was right there, impossibly, waiting on the sidewalk beside the exit of the parking garage when we came out. Now bear in mind, we'd come down the third level doing 30 or 35 around the ramp, yet somehow he had still beaten us downstairs and onto the sidewalk. He was at my door in a flash, and had gotten just inches from grabbing my door handle when I took off down the street, leaving him there on the corner. I checked my mirror a few moments later and nothing. He was just gone. Doug nearly passed out, every ounce of color drained from his face and shaking. As soon as it was clear that he was no longer behind us, though, the feeling of menace that had overtaken us lifted as quickly as it came. We circled the garage and came back to his car about 10 minutes later. No one was anywhere around. Doug bolted out of my car, barely even closing the door as he did, jumped into his and took off for home. During our little ride and before getting out, he confessed to me that he had, in fact, met the younger one earlier that evening, giving him a short ride to the area outside where the seminar was being held. And he did tell him to wait and that he could give him a ride again afterwards, if he still needed one. When he got to his car, however, the older brother scared him, so he figured all bets were off. I was still concerned for what sort of shape Doug was in when he had pulled off, so I decided maybe it was best just to tail him to make sure that he got there okay, keeping about 45 feet back from his car so as not to spook him any further. We had only made it a few blocks though, when that feeling of menace hit me once again like a punch in the gut. A moment later, Doug misjudged a yellow light crossing an intersection and bam! His car was struck by a truck, T-boning his car and killing Doug instantly. I, of course, immediately pulled over and called 911. As I ran to his car, but it was in such bad shape, I knew right away there was no way that he could have survived. Since I had witnessed it all take place, I was asked to give a police report to the responding officers, and I did so. But the whole time I felt really freaked out. Not just at what I had seen, but what I had felt. Exposed, like I was being watched, like I too was in danger. I got back into my car once I had finished, locked the doors, and just waited to pull off. That menacing feeling hadn't left. That's when I looked up, and you won't believe it, but I saw those kids again. They were maybe 2 blocks up ahead. I'm not making this up, and I'm not saying that they were vampires or something like that, but they weren't as pale now, or as skinny, and they felt a damn sight more menacing than before. I left, quickly. My only concern now, though, is that this coming Wednesday, I'm going back to that area for another seminar, and I won't be leaving until about 9:30. I'm freaked out. I mean, what the hell were they? Chapter 2. Going Global. The 2014 Cannock Chase Wave. By the early 2010s, black-eyed kids weren't limited to whispers in Texas or Oregon, or even a solely U.S. phenomenon. They'd gone global, fueled by forums, YouTube, and tabloid frenzy. They'd spread out across the ocean as well. Enter Cannock Chase, a sprawling forest that covers 69 square kilometers or 26 miles in Staffordshire, England, an area already steeped in a long history of hauntings, UFOs, pigmen, black dogs, werewolves, rumors of demonic creatures, and places tucked away in them such as Shugborough Hall, the ancestral home of the Earls of Lichfield that is famously haunted by the ghost of Lady Harriet. In 2014, this ancient forest would become the epicenter of a surge of reports that would turn whispers into front-page hysteria. But to try and understand why these black-eyed entities may have chose this of all places, we need to quickly unpack the chase's bloody history for those that are unfamiliar. Tales of murdered children, restless spirits, and a landscape that seems to summon the supernatural. Buckle up, this chapter is about kids who do more than just politely knock. They haunt an entire woodland. Cannock Chase isn't your average park, spanning 26 square miles of dense birch woods, heathlands, and winding trails. It's a living remnant of England's ancient wilds. Once a royal hunting ground in medieval times, now a mix of serene beauty and sinister lore. But perhaps its darkest chapter unfolded in the 1960s, a period that locals still call the Time of Terror. Between 1965 and 1967, 3 young girls, Margaret Reynolds, age 6, Diana Joy Tift, age 5, and Christine Ann Darby, age 7, were abducted, assaulted, and murdered, their bodies dumped in the Chase's remote areas. After a massive police investigation involving local police and Scotland Yard's murder squad, their killer would be determined to have been a local factory worker, Raymond Leslie Morris, dubbed the A34 Killer due to the abductions all having taken place from areas near the A34 road, his preferred hunting grounds. This guy was a real piece of work, and I don't recommend you even look him up if you're unaware of the story. Morris would be convicted and sentenced, dying in prison on March 14, 2014, ironically the same year that the BEK sightings exploded in the area. He was only convicted of one other abduction and the murder of Christine Darby, but police remain adamant and the evidence shows that he was responsible for all three, and very likely more that occurred around this time. Many believe that these dark tragedies scarred the area. Families avoided the woods, kids were warned not to stray, and soon ghost stories bloomed. Sightings emerged of small, pale figures wandering the paths, crying out or just vanishing into mist. Some claim to see the spirits of the child victims. Paranormal investigators like Lee Brickley, a local author and supposed chase expert, linked these child spirits directly to the murders, suggesting unresolved traumatic deaths manifest as ethereal kids. Quote, "The chase holds on to its dead," Brickley has said in interviews, noting how the killings amplified older legends of demonic black dogs, werewolves, and even the pigman, a half-human beast said to lurk there since World War II. UFO accounts in the 80s added layers with glowing orbs and alien quote-unquote hybrids, echoing the BEK's otherworldly vibe. The black-eyed child of Cannock Chase has been a local legend for longer than the story even first emerged in Texas and Oregon, though. Since at least the early 80s, locals have told stories of brushes with a young girl with pitch black eyes. It's like the land is cursed, drawing in the uncanny, turning grief into ghost. Fast forward to September 2014. The Daily Star tabloid unleashes a media storm. Over one frantic week, they splash 3 front-page tales about a, quote, plague of black-eyed ghost children. They're said to be terrorizing Cannock Chase and beyond. The headlines, Screaming Black-Eyed Child Ghost Terror, The Pub Cursed by Black-Eyed Child Ghosts, and Plague of Black-Eyed Ghost Children, sparked a period of renewed interest in the topic. They would sprinkle in follow-ups over the years as well, including a piece from the day before Halloween of 2022 proclaiming, quote, black-eyed ghost child first spotted in 80s, reappearing during COVID lockdown. And it told the story of 2 17-year-olds who went camping in the Chase, only to have a horrifying brush with the entity. Then again, as recent as November of 2024, there was a story of supposed gangs of BEKs that were back to terrorizing people in the dense woods there. It wasn't just tabloid hype though. Many witnesses would come forward adamant that their encounters were indeed true. Accounts range from locals to tourists and they span decades. The legend still lingers today. Recent expos from 2024 to 2025 show ongoing buzz. Users share YouTube videos with titles like Never Camp in Cannock Chase and warn of run-ins with BEKs during hikes. Another 2024 mirror piece recounts a ghost hunter's, quote, creepy stare that they experienced from a black-eyed kid, girl, blood turning to ice, the ever-present dread that always seems to accompany their presence. The Birmingham Mail even had reporters trek the woods in 2023 in search of the BEKs. Cannock Chase proves the BEK's endurance. From 1960s horror to modern myth, the supposed kids embody our fears of lost innocence, unchecked evil, the unknown others at our door. But are they ghosts of murdered children, demons drawn to blood-soaked soil, or just stories that we tell in the dark? Well, it's hard to definitively say. Speaking of dark tales though, it seems that the BEKs also echo older lores and ancient fears, so perhaps we could look there for more answers. Chapter 3. Echoes of the Past, Ancient Roots. After Brian Bethel's chilling Abilene encounter, John Northwood's Portland nightmare, and the 2014 Cannock Chase wave of sightings, one could be forgiven for thinking that the BEK phenomenon is a modern monster that was born in the glow of internet forums. But what if I told you that these pale, black-eyed strangers begging to come in aren't really new at all? Their roots, or at least a semblance thereof, actually stretch back centuries. They are woven into the oldest stories that we tell, tales of deceptive children, otherworldly imposters, and things that demand to cross your threshold. We're stepping into the shadows of folklore, from Celtic moors to Japanese villages, to uncover why the BEK feels so familiar and so terrifying. Let's start in medieval Europe, where parents feared a threat far older than the stranger danger, the changeling. In Celtic and Norse lore, fairies, not Tinkerbell, think more tricky and not so cute, creatures would steal human babies, leaving behind their own kind in disguise. Other culprits across history included demons, trolls, and nereids, but in traditional Celtic and European folklore, fairies were the most consistent culprits. These changelings looked like the replaced child. Same size, same clothes, but something was off. Their skin a little too pale, their behavior odd, too quiet, too hungry, or eyes that didn't quite match. Sometimes described as dark or hollow, those eyes sparked dread, like staring into the soul of something not quite human. The rules were clear. Don't accept the changeling. Don't invite it into your heart or home beyond necessity. Why? Because doing so let the fairies in deeper, often bringing illness, crop failure, and even direct death. Virtually all European countries have some variation of changelings in their lore, each one carrying its own unique causes and supposed preventions, measures, and remedies. One Irish variation recorded in the 19th century tells of a mother in County Kerry, which I'm sure is more like County Kerry, but you get the picture. Her baby boy, once rosy, turned shallow, his eyes black as sloes and unblinking. Sloes are like the fruit of the black thorn bush, I believe. It's usually like a very dark blue or even black in color, so that's what that was talking about. The child would cry for entry to the family's nightly prayers, but speak in a flat adult voice. "Let me join you." They refused, sensing evil in the child. One night, his mother left iron tongs by the cradle, one of the many supposed fairy wards. By dawn, the child was gone. Her real son returned. While not exactly like the modern-day BEKs, many parallels exist, and the fear of letting imposter children in too close resounds. Changelings, as I mentioned, weren't just an Irish or Norse phenomenon. In Germany, they were known as the Wechselbalg, swapped by mischievous elves. In Scotland, they were also tied to the rich fairy or Sheed lore in the area, fairies who demanded invitation. The fear was universal regardless of the region. A childlike thing, not quite right, craving access to your home and your world. Sound familiar? BEK's "Let Us In" echoes that ancient taboo. Never invite the otherworldly across your threshold. If we cross the globe to Japan, you'll find the yokai spirits that blur human and monster. Among them, the Shiki Warashi, child spirits haunting families, pale as moonlight, often with dark, unreflective eyes. Stories on their appearance and intentions cover a wide range, though. They're mostly said to be benign, giggling in attics, making the sounds of a spinning wheel in the middle of the night. Many stories speak of how they can bring a family luck if they let them stay. But if you mistreat, or worse yet, evict them, your fortunes will flip. Sickness, poverty, and death will befall the family. In most of the stories I've read, the adults can only hear but never see them. Only the children can. This seems to differ between the tellings, though. While the Zashiki Warashi are only mischievous so long as they are well treated and are usually even associated with fortune, there are other spirits like the Yukai Warashi or Yukinko that are not so benevolent. These childlike snow spirits also have various iterations, but most center around their role in luring unsuspecting adults to their deaths. Closely associated with the yokai called Yuki Onna, not to be confused with a screeching parasite creature called the Yoko Ono. That's a joke, sorry. These Yuki Onna will often appear to travelers in remote mountains, carrying the Yukinko in their arms, all bundled up against the snow. She will beg the traveler to hold her child for a moment. If they accept and take the child, it will rapidly grow heavier and heavier until the traveler is unable to move. Once it does, the heavy snow then will quickly pile up around them, freezing them to death. On the other hand, should the traveler refuse her request, the Yuki Onna shoves them off of the mountain path to die in a snowy ravine. Then, tipping back towards the more vampiric traits of the BEKs, in Romania, we find the Strigoi Mort. While not exclusively children, the Strigoi Mort bear many of the same hallmarks that we associate with the BEKs, and stories of child Strigoi are some of the most chilling. Their history dates back to at least the 1500s, and to many in the area is still very active even to this day, with a fairly well-known case having taken place as recently as 2004. The Strigoi bear many of the same haunting traits as the BEKs. Pale in appearance, sunken, often pitch-black eyes, and they appear at the family's door at night, begging permission to enter. Once allowed in, they feed on the blood of their victims and drain their life force, often bringing illness, misfortune, and eventual death. In Scandinavian folklore, we find the Myling, or the Mylingar. These are said to be the vengeful spirits of children, created when a child is unwanted and therefore killed by its mother. Myling loosely translates into murderling, or a murdered small child. In certain Christian denominations, if the child was killed close to birth and thus denied baptism, acceptance into the church, and given proper funerary rites, they could not rest peacefully and were cursed to roam the earth enraged and seeking revenge for being murdered, or, as was often the case, being left in the woods to die. They are also said to chase lone wanderers at night and jump on their backs, demanding to be carried to the graveyard so that they can be put to rest in hollowed ground. Like the Yukinko, they become heavier and heavier the closer one gets to the graveyard, to the point that most anyone will collapse or sink into the soil, unable to complete their task. When this happens, the myling will become enraged even further and murder its victims in a vicious manner. While, if you listen to the episode on this topic from last season, you'll know that I don't like discussing this upcoming particular entity, and it's one with another parallel a little too close to the American BEK stories, and that involves Navajo lore that speaks of the Yi Natalushi, or of course as it's more commonly known as, the Skinwalker. I know, I don't like saying it any more than you guys like hearing it. But grab some sage and I'll keep this one brief, I promise. While not children in truth, they have been said to often mimic child forms to lure victims, appearing pale and out of place with unnaturally dark eyes betraying their malice. A story from the Southwest that I left out of that episode describes a family hearing a child's cry outside of their hogan. A small figure lurking just beyond the light of the fire pleads with the family, "I'm lost, let me in." When it steps forward from the darkness, one thing becomes noticeable above all else: eyes like shadowed voids, absorbing rather than reflecting the light of the fire. An elder is awoken by all of this commotion and, quickly recognizing this childlike figure for what it is, quickly begins scattering ashes to ward it away. At this, the figure shifts and flees from the area in the form of a coyote. So even dark entities such as those exploit humanity's compassion and trust in vulnerable kids, using it to gain entry to curse or kill. While there are countless legends that play on that dynamic, which appear over and over throughout the world and history, perhaps the best known parallel can be drawn between the BEKs and demons. Story after story tell of demonic spirits that appear, speak, or otherwise portray themselves as innocent children in order to gain trust or sympathy from humans and to draw them closer to them, so that they can exploit that opening to oppress, possess, or otherwise infiltrate the lives of unsuspecting victims. Over and over, we hear accounts of evil spirits using the visage of child innocence to gain entry, trust, or access to accomplish their dark aims. Noted skeptics of the BEK phenomenon, like Sharon Hill, argue that BEKs are just folklore reborn. Just some combination of pareidolia and internet stories twisting old tales into modern boogeymen. No verified photos, no bodies, just stories, but maybe that's the point. These myths persist because they hit deep. Changelings, Zashiki Warashi, Mylinger, they're all tales of warning. Don't just trust the innocent face at your door. Don't allow the random child in without scrutiny. BEKs take that ancient fear and dresses it in hoodies, swapping fairy mounds for parking lots, but the chill is the same. Something is at your threshold, and it isn't what it seems to be. The stories evolve, the names change, but the fear remains the same. Chapter 4. Theories. So far, we've sat in the parking lot with Brian Bethel, we've fled the garage with John Northwood, and we've explored the haunted trails of Kenneck Chase. We've even traced these black-eyed strangers back through centuries of legend. Now it's time to try and tackle the one question that everyone has when they hear about the BEKs for the first time. What the hell are they? In this chapter, we're going to lay out and examine the leading theories. No tinfoil hats required, but keep the lights on. We'll weigh the supernatural, the extraterrestrial, the psychological, and the cultural aspects to see how the facts, or lack thereof, stack up and let them speak for themselves. Starting off with Theory 1, demons or malevolent spirits. The oldest explanation, it ticks a lot of boxes, and it's possibly the one that keeps witnesses up at night the most, is that BEKs are demons appearing as children to gain trust and get closer to humans. Some reasonings behind this angle: the invitation rule. Classic demonology from medieval grimoires to modern exorcists insist that something has to provide an opening to allow them in, and that they cannot cross a threshold without permission. And if we follow the logic on this one, then the whole let us in shtick isn't politeness, it's a contractual loophole. There's primal dread. Bethel, Northwood, and countless others describe feeling a non-rational terror, not fear of a mugger, but a soul-level feeling that something isn't right and that danger is near. If we look towards religious cooperation, in the 2015 episode of Monsters and Mysteries in America, Bethel openly restates his belief that they were, quote, demonic entities testing faith. The paranormal community, or anyone who has direct dealings with a demonic entity, likely knows or has heard that one of their preferred tools for lowering someone's guard is to appear or act like they're just children. Theory 2. Extraterrestrials are hybrids. The black eyes aren't just creepy. They're anatomically impossible. I guess that's where ufologists step in to offer another angle, starting with abduction parallels. Whitney Strieber, in Communion from 1987, describes small black-eyed beings entering homes after quote-unquote permissions was psychically given. David Jacobs' hybrid research claims alien-human children are deployed as scouts, pale, emotionless, needing entry to monitor or retrieve. Also, a 2016 MUFON report describes the claims of a witness in Oregon who said that a BEK teleported 20 feet to reappear when they had reversed their car to get away from one. That also aligns with John Northwood's parking deck story. Theory 3. Psychological/urban legend. The most grounded take is that BEKs are basically a self-fulfilling meme. This may be supported by tracing their appearances and responses to it. In 1998, Bethel's story hits the Usenet early message boards. By 2007, 4chan's X board had hundreds of copycat tales, each adding hoodies, monotone speak, irresistible dread, and of course the signature black eyes. Sharon A. Hill of Doubtful News calls it ostension, saying that people act out legends, creating real encounters via suggestion. It's also a great story that tickles all of our fear responses. Just from my observations of the phenomenon, humans are genetically trained to gather much of their information about someone from eye contact, something that is impossible when all that there is staring back at you are black voids. The lack of that feature also pushes them into uncharted regions between normal human response and uncanny valley, triggering dread through our fear of the unknown, as well as our inability to actually understand what we are seeing. Then there's Theory 4, cultural archetype, the quote-unquote threshold monster. Maybe the truth doesn't lie in what they are so much as why we need them. From the anthropological perspective, people such as folklorist Linda Day offer that every culture has a stranger at the gate myth, and that BEKs have arisen in modern times to fulfill ours. This also plays out in our very realistic and rational fear of home invasions, and BEKs weaponize trust in children to amplify that fear coming from one of the least logical places, which seems to make the very reasonable fear less rational, but less predictable by having to now essentially incorporate the least likely of Trojan horses into the equation. The verdict? Well, it's difficult to pin down and greatly depends on who you choose to believe. If you're looking for hard proof, there really is none. No bodies, no DNA, no confirmed videos, nothing you can really pin down and point to. If you want chills, the consistency across decades and continents is pretty uncanny. If you want the truth though, there's always the chance that you'll find it in the mirror, because there's always a chance that we collectively created and added to the perfect monster for our age, a child that you can't help without risking everything. When you look at the ever-present reality of elite pedophile rings, you can kind of understand how that comparison makes a little sense, particularly in this day and age. Chapter 5. The door is still open. You've heard some of the stories and you've taken a journey into the past to examine their ancient parallels, and you've heard the leading theories. The haunting truth, though, is despite all of this, no one knows for certain what they are. But here's the part that no one wants to say out loud. Their stories are still told, so whatever they are, they're apparently still out there. Right now, tonight, above any other. At the edge of your headlights as you drive home, in the flicker of your porch light, in the knocks that you hear but don't dare to answer. This isn't a theory chapter. This is the After Dark chapter, the one you listen to with the lights off, the one that follows you home. October 26, 2025, a user on X posted a Ring doorbell camera video. Suburban Street, 11:47 p.m. Two kids in hoodies standing in the driveway, their faces obscured by shadow. They never ring the bell, they never knock, they just wait. The homeowner never opened the door. The figures don't leave or move. At 11:59, the motion sensor shuts off. When it comes back on, they're gone. No evidence beyond the brief video that they were ever even there. Just a faint whisper that can be heard in the enhanced audio saying what sounds like,
"We'll come back when you're ready."
The post racked up 2.1 million views in just a day, but by morning, the entire account had been deleted. The unbroken rule, the one that 99% of people never dare to break. You never, ever let them in. Why? Likely because that dread isn't rational, it's instinctual. Like a deer freezing at a predator's scent. Brian Bethel says it felt like staring into the abyss. John Northwood described it as pure evil wearing a child's face, and almost all of them describe a feeling of their blood running cold. They all did the same thing. They refused, and they lived. But what if you did open the door? What if you said, "Come on in, it's cold"? What if you broke the one rule? Well, there's only one story out there that I'm aware of that might give us that answer. The details are hard to pin down, though, through the retellings. Some say it was a stormy evening in Vermont. Some place the story in Oregon. The details shift slightly. Most say that the couple were in their 70s, in a quiet suburb, porch light flickering against the downpour. But despite the inconsistencies, the knock and what happens after typically remains the same, soft but insistent. The wife looks through the peephole first. 2 children, a boy and a girl, looking no older than 10 or 11. Soaked clothes, hooded jackets, but outdated, like thrift store relics from a past decade. No umbrellas, no parents anywhere in sight.
Our car broke down.
The girl says, voice flat and empty of emotion.
Can we wait inside? Mom and Dad are coming.
The boy just nods, eyes downcast. They don't look up, they don't shiver or show any signs of discomfort. The husband hesitates when his wife looks to him for the go-ahead to open the door. He feels that tug, that primal no, but it's too late. It's cold out and they're just kids. Before a second thought, they open the door. They break the one rule. "Come in, dears," the wife says. The air shifts the moment that they cross the threshold. It's thicker, colder, and not just from the outside air blowing in. Their cats seem to sense it first. They scatter from the living room, hissing like they've seen the devil, then just vanishing into the shadows. The kids just glide in like they now own the place, and they settle on the couch without a word, hands folded, faces blank. The wife immediately goes and busies herself in the kitchen. Hot cocoa. Something that most any kid would love, to help to cut the chill. Her husband sits in his chair across from them, asking the questions that any adult would. Where's home? What happened to your car? How did you get separated from your parents? They answer in unison, voices overlapping.
They'll be here soon.
No details beyond that. No fidgeting or looking around that you would expect from young children. The wife returns with the mugs and sets them down on the table in front of them, handing another to her husband. And that's when it happens. The girl looks up just for a second, eyes like twin voids, swallowing the light from the nearby lamp. No whites, no reflection. The husband sees it too, mid-sip. His mug slips from his hand. His nose begins to pour blood, hot and sudden. The cocoa and blood soak his shirt. He presses his handkerchief to it to stem the bleeding, waving it off as just old sinus problems. But his face drains pale. Dizzy spells hit like waves. The lights begin to flicker, once, twice, and then plunges all of the home into darkness, only lit by a single candle, the one that the wife always lights in storms, just enough to navigate to a flashlight or another candle. In the darkness, the kids stand up, still as statues, staring.
We should go,
the boy says. No urgency, no thanks. They first excuse themselves to the bathroom together, door half open. When they emerge moments later, the lights flicker back to life. Then, without a word, they exit the home. The couple watch from a window as the pair step out onto the driveway. A black car idles at the curb, unseen until now. 2 tall men in suits wait, faces obscured. No words, no waves. The kids climb in and the car pulls away. The next morning, the cats show the first signs. One refuses to eat, curls in a corner, eyes wild. It would die 3 days later. Hemorrhaging blood that pools around its body. The other 3 are simply gone. No collars, no traces. The wife begins having nosebleeds as well. No cause, but they are daily. Dizzy spells that drop her to her knees. The husband has it even worse. A shadow begins to bloom on his skin, aggressive and unnatural. Doctors call it cancer. Skin lesions spreading like wildfire. Its spread and veracity baffling even the best specialists. He would only be able to fight for a few months before it takes him. His wife survives the ordeal, but just barely. Her family posts the story in old forums, warning, don't let them in. They'll take everything that you hold dear. But is it real? Or is it just the speculative shadow of what could happen? The details blur, but the ending doesn't. Once you let them in, the black stays. In your shadows, in the edges of your mirrors, and in your very veins, waiting for the next knock. Here's the truth that no theory can touch. They don't need you to believe. They only need you to doubt. Doubt your gut feeling of dread. Doubt the rule. Doubt that they exist. Because the moment you hesitate, the moment you think, they're just kids, what's the harm? The moment you commit to turning the knob. We knew you'd let us in. So tonight, of all nights, when the veil is at its thinnest, Maybe it's best to be safe than sorry. Maybe you should second guess that knock at the door, that innocent face behind the mask, a voice that seems a little too flat, too mechanical in its trick or treat, because maybe, just maybe, this is the night that they wait for all year, when your defenses are at their lowest, when your charity is at its highest, when you're most likely to answer that knock without a second thought. Just watch out for those eyes. Happy Halloween, curious minds.
Let us in.